Well, thank you, Judy. Welcome, everyone, to the June edition of the Canyon Country Advisory Committee. Tonight, as always, we'll have our call to order, flag salute, and some announcements. And then we're going to go through some what I call June items of interest. We'll just quickly go through the primary election results. I'm sure you probably already know them, but we'll just talk with them a little bit because it gives us some opportunities for possibly getting some more candidates here before you. Then we're going to go through the story of the embezzlement at City Hall. Money that had been taken and stolen from City Hall, so we'll tell you as much as we know about that right now. Also, the Santa Clarita Valley chloride issue. Santa Clarita Valley Sanitation District has their project for reducing chloride in the river has been put on hold. The judge was not happy with what they have done, and we'll talk about that as well. Next, I think it's interesting to talk about the cities and county sheriff station plans. This is sort of a collaboration between the city and the county, and I want to talk about the job that the city has done negotiating that with the county. And then we can talk a little bit about some of the future Canyon Country Advisory Community debates or forums that we might be able to hold. Next, there's been quite a bit of discussion about the Urban Water Management Plan, and Lynn Planbeck will be here, and she will give us a briefing on that plan and where they are today. Then our own Rick Drew will talk about the Whitaker-Burma Interjurisdictional and Citizens Advisory Group meeting that's coming up on July the 6th, and he may take us on a photo tour of the Burmite site from the last time that we actually went there. Now, last night was what we affectionately around here call our summer surprise. See, every month before the City Council goes on hiatus, it seems like they pack a bunch of stuff in and give us a little bit of a surprise. And so we did have a lot of stuff on the City Council agenda last night. As a matter of fact, if you looked at the agenda packet and you added the city budget, it was 902 pages long. But you shouldn't have any worry about that. They gave you 3 days to read it. And so we'll talk about some of the highlights of that. We'll talk about, they did set times for signing up for the City Council election. We'll talk a little bit about the 16-17 proposed city budget, the open space and parkland preservation district fee that they just raised. Henry Mayo has some new plans for the inpatient building and moving the helipad, so we'll fill you in on that a little bit. And then one thing that's always been near and dear to our heart is the median contract monitor proposals that they put up last night, and that is where they hire people to watch the people they hired to maintain the medians. I don't know, that's the way they do it. Then our version of public participation, the first 5 people that want to speak for a minute, and we'll have a little bit of a next meeting preview, and then we'll adjourn promptly at 9 o'clock. Every month we go through and look for something that's happened, and this time we didn't have to look. It just popped up in front of us with the terror in Orlando, Florida. And a gentleman here, well, I don't want to call him a gentleman, an individual here who decided that he was going to kill people and went into a bar that happened to be a gay bar, and he killed, I don't know if the number now is 49 or 50, but killed 49 people, wounded a bunch of others, have another 50 people in the hospital. And you always have to wonder why, wonder what makes somebody do those kinds of things that they do. So we've heard a lot on the news. I'm sure you've heard it because it just captivated the news for 2 days. It was the deadliest mass shooting in the history of the United States. The shooter was ID'd as Omar Mateen. He's a U.S.-born citizen to Afghan parents. And the thing that was most interesting was the FBI had interviewed him in 2013 and 14 because he was suspected of having terrorist ties. And They suggested that he not only might have terrorist ties, but he had leanings to radical Islamic beliefs. And they went through and they interviewed him, and they said, well, everything's fine, and they closed the case. And so he was a security guard. He had a weapons license, and he recently went out and purchased a semi-automatic AR-15 rifle and pistol. And they interviewed, what was interesting was they interviewed the shop owner, the gun shop owner that sold him the weapons. And I thought it was an interesting situation because I hear everybody talking about background checks and how background checks are going to solve our problems. And he said that my team actually went in to purchase also body armor, but that particular gun shop did not sell body armor, so they didn't sell any to him. And even though he had a guard card and he had a weapons license, they still required him to go through the federal background check, and he still had to comply with the wait time that Florida requires, and Florida has a 3-day wait, and so he went through all the hoops and hurdles that anybody would do to go get those weapons. So he started shooting at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning, and like I said, it's the highest body count from a terror attack of that type since 9/11. During the attack he called 9/11 and pledged allegiance to ISIS. So one of the people that were there, and I think it's important that we talk about this a little bit. One of the people, Mr. Rob Rick, said that the violence erupted as the activities in the night were winding down, and he estimated 100 people were still inside when the shooting began. He fell to the ground and crawled to the DJ booth, and this is something that we need to really think about too. And he said some people managed to escape out the back door of the club after a bouncer knocked down a partition between the club area and a restricted area leading the exit. I understand that from listening to some of the news forecasts that some of the exits were blocked, some of them were locked, and reminded me of what happened in the Triangle Fire in New York. Within minutes of the shooting, they reported, within minutes of the shooting, police vehicles and a SWAT team descended on the club, which had more than, they claimed, 300 people inside. And my team took hostages, and about 3 hours later, the police went in to rescue the hostages and killed my team in a gunfight. Now that goes to talk about what I always say, or think about what I always say: when seconds count, the police are minutes away. In this case, when seconds count, the police are 3 hours away. You know, this is real life. It's not a Die Hard movie where we have some hero that runs in, puts themselves on the line, and comes out winning. The police are very cautious at certain times, and this was one of them. So we talk about what happens all over the country. There was a blood drive in Orlando. People were coming out and in support of the victims with their blood drive. And here in Santa Clarita, we had a candlelight vigil in Central Park. So it took place on Sunday evening between 7 and 8, and we had some really great pictures that were taken of it. This was organized, again, we talked about him last month, but this was organized again by Andrew Tabin. And Andrew organized it, and he said he stood up for LGBT issues in the past, and he was standing up again. And I got to give the guy a lot of credit. He's definitely a young man that has got the best interest of our community at heart. So how can we help? Well, you hear a lot about continue to believe in American values. We really need to believe in freedom. We need to believe in tolerance for other people and diversity. But I think it's really interesting. You know, sometimes whenever something like this happens, I don't know about you, but I watch television, and I hear all of our career politicians, and it's the same blah, 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 right? Well, we know that they're going to come out and they're going to show solidarity with the victims, but we don't really see them come out with a real solution. They just talk about this stuff and talk about us going about our daily life. Well, I heard one individual on television who I thought was a little bit more realistic, and he said what we have to understand as a culture is that we are at war with radical Islam. It's just a definite thing that's going to happen. And when I say that there are heroes all around us, because this can happen anywhere, you may end up being one of those heroes. And you need to be ready for those similar situations. So one of the things, he talked about three things to do. He said, well, you can escape if you can, and you can hide if you can, but you have to fight if you need to. And I was starting to think about that, and I think the only real thing in this issue is, what do we have to fight with? You know? And especially here in California, where everything seems to be illegal, it doesn't leave us with much. But it's an issue that I know I certainly would rather, if I have to get caught in a situation like that and I have to give up my life, I would certainly rather do it fighting than sitting there cowering as a victim. And I hope more people would think that way too. But the last thing is that, and we hear our politicians talk about how, well, it's not all of one group or another. And I agree with that. But what we need to do is we need to get to know our neighbors. You know, remember that there are a lot of individuals in our community from the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender groups, and a lot of Muslim Americans that are just valuable American citizens. They believe in what we believe in, and they make valuable contributions to our community. And one of the things I thought that's very interesting is that we started talking a little bit about this in another venue, but most people don't realize that there are 3 mosques here in Santa Clarita. One is the Unity Center. That's the one with Mohsen Chowdhury in Newhall. It's on 8th Street in the old library, and it's called the Unity Center. And the second one is right across the street in the old feed barn and or Majestic Tile. And where I know Mohsen and the guys in Newhall, I don't know these citizens across the street, and I really don't know where the third one is. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to find out, and we can talk a little bit about who our neighbors are, because it's important to know our neighbors and know when our neighbors are with us or when our neighbors are against us, right? And I know for sure that our friends in Newhall are with us, and let's hope that the rest of them are as well. So with that, Judy, could you lead us in the flag salute? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. For announcements, I'm going to have the first announcement. I don't have a chart on, but on October the 1st, Saturday, October the 1st, is the annual Rubber Ducky Regatta. Now, if you had one of these nice little Rubber Ducky Regatta items, adoption papers, to adopt one of those cute little yellow ducks, you would see that the honorary chairman of the event is Michael Antonovich, and the chairman is me. Okay? Now, one of the things that we get to do is not only does Samuel Dixon try to raise money this way, but they also share it with other nonprofits. So I have some adoption papers in the back of the room, and if you care to adopt a duck, and inside this piece of paper, where you say it was sold by, you put the Canyon Country Advisory Committee down there, we'll get back 20% of everything that you spend. So hopefully you will choose to adopt a duck, watch the races, and I can guarantee you there really is a winner at times. I mean, what was it, 3 years ago that I won? Right? And it's for a good cause. I attended Ahtna today, and I was very surprised that there was a lot of discussion about crime in Newhall and the homeless. Turns out that in Newhall, over the past month, there have been something like 28 incidents of crime. So they showed us maps, and they showed us where all the different crimes occurred. In the Metrolink parking lot alone, there were 8 vehicles broken into over the month. And there were, I believe it was 4 burglaries of some of the places around Newhall. Also on Main Street. Also, there was a lot of discussion about homelessness in Newhall and how homelessness in Newhall is becoming an issue because we know that, and it's been reported before, that the second floor of the library is pretty much a daycare center for homeless during the summer. And the Veterans Plaza is a place where we've seen a lot of homeless. And so there was a lot of discussions, or some discussions, about what some of the solutions could be. Mayor Keller was at the meeting, and his quote was, "The more services you provide, the more they will come. But we're doing everything we can to solve the problem." It doesn't sound like much. I had some discussions with some other individuals there, and there was a lot of thought that possibly having an area where homeless encampments could take place in a more in a way that can be more monitored and regulated could help. Because right now what's happening is we have large homeless encampments in the river. The sheriffs will go and post the encampment, rouse the residents, clean up the area, and then what happens is that they just move somewhere else, right? So, and we do it again. And I know here in Canyon Country, for example, the place where I was storing my motorhome, I did not store it there because of this. I actually sold it, but where I was storing my motorhome, it was broken into, and a lot of other RVs were broken into because it's right next to the riverbed. And our library here, the Joanne Darcy Library, is also become a daycare center for homeless as well. So something definitely needs to be done. It's just going to continue to get worse unless we actually have a real good solution, and I don't think we have a real good solution right now. On June the 26th, Otten is going to have their car show. So if you have a car that you'd like to show and you sign it up before the show, it's $30, or $40 if you do it the day of the event. And they gave me a nice flyer. There's also a Saturday's farmers market that's there every Saturday, and they had some people that were talking about what a good job the farmers market was doing. So I'll put these in the back of the room if anybody wants to see them. And lastly, they were talking about a June 30th task party, and it's a kind of a party where you suggest art tasks for people, and you put them in a big bowl, and then maybe a paper bag, and then someone will pick one out, and then they have to go and do that. So it's a way of getting everybody to know each other, and tickets for that are a whole $1 if you decide you want to go. So very reasonable. Announcement from the city staff that was there was that July 29th will be the Canyon Country Summer Bash, and that Summer Bash will be right where it always is, next to Edwards Cinema. On the countywide parks district, I'm disappointed again. I think I reported to you last month that there was a meeting at Hart Park that only 4 residents attended because it was an invitation-only event. I had spoken to Dave Perry, and Dave Perry was going to try to get someone out here from the county to talk to us. But Dave Perry now is moved on to a job in transportation in L.A. For Michael Antonovich. And I talked to Rosalind, and she hasn't gotten back with me yet. But I'm kind of disappointed because we are as constituents of the county as well as citizens and constituents of the city, and I expect them to treat us that way and give us the kind of information we need. Because they're going to come back to us and they're going to want to float this as a district with a fee for every piece of property in Santa Clarita, and if they don't talk to us, I say vote no. Statistics, well, we had a great meeting. We had 80 people here last month. That was really cool. And people are watching the videos. Well, nothing spectacular there, but hopefully it'll bounce up.